I would not start MobiKwik at this time. If I were to be out of MobiKwik and if you ask me to start MobiKwik, I don't think I can compete. We are in a phase where there are already established players like us, there are others. I actually rarely hire from IIT. There was one guy from Triple IIT Delhi and Triple IIT had just started at that time. That guy actually built our first app. Android app. He built our first iOS app and he built our first Windows app. The same guy, official.
Hello everyone. Good morning. Our guest for today is none other than Mr. Bipin Preet Singh, who is a pioneering figure in the Indian fintech industry. And alumnus of IIT Delhi, he is the MD, co-founder and CEO of MobiKwik. I'm sure you might have heard of it. He has been instrumental in transforming the digital payments landscape in India. He has almost 19 years of experience working in the fintech industry since when the field itself was very nascent. He has also led MobiKwik towards a valuation of more than $1 billion since 2017. We have with us today Mr. Bipin Preet Singh. Let's get started.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Ashna. And great to be here. And, I was a student once. It's been a long time. I know how students are and how they think. So hopefully, we can have a good, interesting talk today.
Yes.
About not just my journey, but also, about what you are thinking and what you want to do in life.
Yeah, I think our students are very eager to share that as well.
So actually, I did plan for an MBA. I think about 4 to 5 years after I was working.
Yeah.
And before I started MobiKwik, you are basically when you are in your late 20s, you are thinking about what to do with your life. And you are not fully satisfied. Job to chal raha hai, you are doing some work and you're getting money also. Everything is good. But there is something missing. That you can do more in life, and this is the phase in my life when I was. So I started my career after IIT working in semiconductors as an engineer. So I was an engineer. I was a fairly like an engineer. How engineers are, right? I mean, focused on coding and having this kind of hobbies that engineers have, and I wanted to change my life. I wanted to figure out what to do, and I was not very happy just being I would say, just a cog in the wheel, right? Just one part of a very large company, and I was working with companies like Intel and Nvidia at that time. And that's when, in fact, I got fairly impatient. And I had a job where I had a lot of time. So I was thinking what to do next, etc. And one of the thoughts was that, like after IIT, I would say maybe a good percentage of people who pass out of IIT in India also go for MBA. Right? So I also thought that let's try this because some of my friends were also going there. Some of them were going to different B schools. And so I gave my GMAT. I got a decent score. I didn't want to do the MBA in India, so I applied mostly to US B schools. I got a few admits as well. But then when I saw the fees, I was like, dude, this is like, I will have to take a $100,000 loan and then I have to spend the next 10 years repaying that loan. So maybe that's not such a good investment. And then I have to go into a job which has to pay me well after MBA. So I will probably lose a little bit of my freedom to choose, right? And so with that thought, then, even though I had myths, I decided that, okay, this is not something I want to do right now, maybe later. And in fact, that point itself, I had the idea of MobiKwik. That if I am not going to do an MBA, then what am I going to do? And even though I come from a family where, my dad used to actually run a shop and I used to sit in the shop. But mostly we were trained to grow up to be engineers and have a salary every month. So the idea of doing a startup, although it was an extreme idea at that time, and I don't come from a very rich background, It was a little bit of a crazy idea in the family at that point. But then, I think, when we are young, we have big dreams. So, and you have one life.
Yeah.
And you have to make a decision what you want to do. If you have a dream, you have to pursue the dream, no matter how crazy it is. So
Absolutely.
that's how the idea of MobiKwik started. And I can't complain today of what we have built over the last 14 years.
Yeah, neither can we. I think MobiKwik is going places at this point. So let's travel back to 2009. Like you said, you were working in the, as a systems architect and engineer in the semiconductor industry. So going more to the point as to how did this idea came to you and Upasna, his wife. So, and what is something that perhaps nobody knows about your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I think there are a lot of details, right? Starting an entrepreneurial journey is, it's very easy to start a company, but to actually start and to actually first take the plunge is the most important thing. And, we are all very smart people. We are well-read engineers, MBAs, etc. We typically are not, nobody wants to take the risk of not having a salary, right? Everybody wants to have a paycheck at the end of the month. So I think the biggest mental block is to actually get over that piece, right? That can you spend a few months or even a few years where you will not get anything? And I think that when I quit my job, my last job before I started MobiKwik, I think I had like maybe a couple of lakhs or 2 or 3 lakhs of savings. And that's it. And I am the eldest one in my family. All my siblings are younger than me. And like I said, not a very rich background. So I was the main breadwinner in my family. But I think, what happened is it's exactly at that point when I was deliberating whether I should quit my job and get into this full time, because I had the idea before already while I was doing the job, but I had not really started, right? And the way I got the idea was very simple. I was just reading about the industry, telecom industry, etc. And I clearly saw that internet is going to change the way how we live our life, as well as how we use money. And money is the ultimate digital good. There is nothing more digital than money is, right? It's all, you don't see it anymore, right? Right now it's all sitting in your screen, somewhere in your phone or somewhere in your bank account. You access it to the desktop, and that's the vision I had, that ultimately money and banking will become completely digital, and banks for sure, they are not great at technology. While they're great at banking, and you all have bank accounts, but the experience that they have with the tech products is not that great, which is why we see today, most of the banking products, starting with payments and now other financial products, are being led by non-banks. And so this is a thought I had. And again, there were no smartphones at that time. So it was all about making a website. Just make website to do basic things like recharging your phone or paying your bills, etc., and creating a digital wallet. So I had that idea. I had gotten this thing together. I'd done my research. I knew it's going to be a very big market. I exactly didn't know how we were going to make money, but I knew that if I had a lot of customers, and if these customers came onto my website and did some transactions, then for sure we can figure out a way to make money. That is the only thing I knew. And we are talking about 14 years ago, so everything was very, very small. I think there were about maybe 10, 20 million people on internet. And like I said, no smartphones, no Android. iPhone had not yet come to India. So, but the biggest thing is that obviously there's a lot of uncertainty, right? So the uncertainty of a business model and the uncertainty of your own personal choices and how you're going to live your life. Because it was very clear that if you're going to do this, then for the first few years, you have to figure out how to make money or raise money. At that time, there were not a lot of investment funds which would just give you money. And even now, I don't think people will just give you money as investors just, because you have an idea. It needs to make sense, and it needs to fit in with the current market opportunity. So at that time, I actually happened to meet Upasna, who had just returned from US, and she went to Stanford. She studied also in NIT Jalandhar engineering, and she had gone to study masters at Stanford and worked in Bay Area, Silicon Valley. Worked in companies like PayPal, HSBC for 5 years. And she had the reverse problem. She thought she had earned a lot of money already, and she wanted to come back and give back. Which is weird. Like, you worked only 5 years. So, but yeah, I mean, she's this is the reason I'm telling you this is how entrepreneurs think. That, basically you need to be crazy, a little bit of crazy. And so she had come back, and she was doing some social impact work, working in Noida and UP and some other. And that's when we met socially. And she became a friend, and then she asked me, like anybody who's in late 20s, the first question is, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? Right? I mean, early 20s is about passing on, your engineering, etc. First few years, you're doing a job. But that's when it strikes, what are you going to do now? Are you going to pivot your career? Are you going to do an MBA? Are you going to go into a different stream? Are you going to start a company? So we were in that phase. I and Upasna, we met socially, same age. Right, so we started talking, and that's when she said, "Okay, what are you doing?" I said, "I have this idea. I'm going to build this company, this wallet, and I think this is a big opportunity. But I don't know how I'll make money. But also, I don't have money, and I don't have investors, so I don't know what to do. Like, I'm not very happy with my job, but definitely I want to do these." And I think she said one thing, that you have one life. Just go ahead. And, I am with you, and I'll back you. And I think that's what actually gave me the confidence, because you all need that one person, right? Anybody, and one friend, one mentor, one advisor, one person who will, give confidence to you, take your idea and say, okay, this makes sense. You can go ahead. And I think that conviction really helped. And I think within a week, I had already resigned, and then, MobiKwik was born. And yeah, I mean, I think that is the way basically MobiKwik started. And then eventually we started dating, and we started living together. And we had an apartment you used to live in South Delhi earlier, but then we figured out that South Delhi is way too expensive to pay the rent and running a startup, right? So he said, this is too expensive. So then we moved to Dwarka. And so yeah, I mean, that apartment where we lived on rent, I still remember it's like 10,000-12,000 rent. It was the first office in a way of MobiKwik, because that's where we hired the first person of MobiKwik. In fact, for the first, I would say 1 year, we had 1 or 2 employees, and they used to come, and in the drawing room, we had these tables set up. And I would wake up and the doorbell would come, because I think we hired another crazy guy who, wanted to come at 7:30 in the morning. And so he used to ring the doorbell, and we would open, and he would come and start working. So I think that's what I remember. And I think that is what it takes to basically bet everything that you have, your life, your everything, to start something on your own. And that is the kind of, I would say, confidence and conviction. And I think a lot of people think about ideas, for example, right? That you need to have a great idea to be successful. Sure, you need to have a great idea. But I can tell you, 90% of the things that we do today in MobiKwik, or 95%, I didn't know when I started MobiKwik. So it's all a journey of discovery. It's a journey of learning, where businesses will evolve, business model will evolve, technology will evolve, platform will evolve. But I think the one thing that everybody notices the market will notice, investors will notice, uh, your friends will notice, is that are you all in? If you're all in, then nobody can stop you. Because even if your idea is really bad, for example, you will figure out what is the right idea. That's what I think it is about.
Yeah.
And really, that is the story of how we started.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, because a lot of us, I think, we get stuck on the idea itself and perfecting the idea and not actually just start working towards it. Anything, perhaps.
Absolutely. I think ideas are like somebody had said, I read on social media also, how many people we have, and if every person had an idea, like we are a country of billion people, so everybody has some idea. So that doesn't really help, right? Billions of ideas. Ideas are important to give you a general direction, but many times how the business will start and evolve, you have to start somewhere. Right, so some basics you have to take care of, and the ideas ideally should actually be right for that particular opportunity. As long as that is there, then it's all about perfecting it over time. But it's more about, I think, the mental makeup. These days, obviously, entrepreneurship and starting companies is much different than when I started. Right, these days, and all of you smart guys, if any one of you start a company, I'm sure angel investors and seed investors would be standing in a queue to fund you. Okay, because you guys, and I'm for sure you guys are much smarter than I was when I started. So your ideas will be great, and right now money is available. But still, one thing is that even after you get, let's say, the first check or the money, and you don't have to face challenges, let's say in finding an office or hiring people, etc. Even then, I think to have a successful journey of entrepreneurship, the one thing to remember is that it's not something that can happen in 1 year or 2 years or even 5 years. It's a journey, and that is the thing that you have to commit towards. If you mentally can commit to something like that, then it makes sense to start a company.
Fair point. So talking about, okay, now you've started MobiKwik, now you're running the business, and I want to talk about the initial years of MobiKwik. What were some of the significant leadership challenges that you faced that time, and like how did you overcome them to become what you are today?
Right. So, when I started the company, it was not about leadership challenges. It's about company should make some money so that it can get some salary, right? Or raise some money, because the whole thing was that if this doesn't make money in the next 1 year or 18 months or 2 years, then what am I going to do? I will have to shut it down, and then I have to find a job, right? So I think when you're early on, you're solving real practical problems, right? Related to what you want to do, how you will pay salaries, how will you pay rent, how will you grow the business, etc. And I think at that time it was all about finding the right people, because one of the big challenges or the big learnings for me is that entrepreneurship, although it is something that you start on your own, but to be successful, you need to bring people who will make it successful. And I think that's the most important ingredient of any business. And so for me, I think it was a real learning curve. See, look, I was an engineer, and I never studied any leadership course anywhere, and I didn't know how to lead people. All I knew is I could spot somebody and I could say, this person works hard, okay, and they're dedicated, they're passionate, because that's half the battle won. When you're starting a company, you're not looking for very big CVs. You're not looking for somebody from Harvard or somebody with 20 years of experience, because guess what? Some of them may, but most of them will not roll up their sleeves and start coding or start calling or start receiving customer calls. So when you're starting a company, in the first few years at least, until you achieve some kind of a scale, some kind of a business model fit. It's all about hiring the people who will be as passionate or more passionate about your idea, about the product that you're building, about the business. And so there, I think, one of the most interesting learnings for me was that obviously, youngsters like you generally have a lot more passion. And so, which is why you see lot of the companies that get started and are successful are all started by young people and hired by young people. And because for them, it's all in, right? I mean, they want to just go in and do anything and everything. I had engineers who would take customer calls. I had customer care guys who graduated to writing HTML and code. So basically, you have all kinds of people doing all kinds of things because all you want to do is to get to a certain milestone where you can say that now this business makes sense. Because if it doesn't reach that stage, no matter what plan you have, no matter how your business plan looks like, no matter what your forecast looks like, no matter what the market looks like, no matter what your investors say, but if you're not reach a certain milestone, first milestone, and that is something that you define, that let's say for us, the biggest milestone or the first milestone we had defined was basically getting to 1 million users. And we said if we get to 1 million users on our platform, then it means that we've got something going, right? That this is adopted by people are using it, and it will go forward. So I think the first few years the biggest thing was all about finding the right people. And most of those guys that I hired, most of the people I hired were all freshers, literally freshers. There was one guy from Triple IIT Delhi, and Triple IIT had just started at that time. And that guy actually built our first app, Android app. He built our first iOS app, and he built our first Windows app. The same guy, a fresher. And I cannot imagine today hiring somebody, who would do that. But so I don't know how that happened. But see, this is the magic of when people are passionate. Same way, our first sales guy was actually a fresher from DC. And I had gone to the campus to hire generally, I'd gone to hire engineers. And, it was late already in the kind of the campus recruitment is already mostly over. And we did some people came in. This guy came running in. I think he came running in because he got to know later. It looked like he had just taken a bath, obviously. And he came in and he talked a lot about how, he's going to sell this product and market it. And I hired him on the spot. And he stayed with us for, I think, 7 years actually. And he used to lead our sales before he started another company. And then right now he's a CXO in a leading startup in Gurgaon. And he was just I think 2011 or 2012 pass out. So it's not that, not that old or not that experienced. So the other guy that I was talking about, who was an engineer, he's already done 2 startups. So we have like MobiKwik alumni who have actually gone on and built startups, like for example, Pristine Care or Zip. All these people are alumni of MobiKwik, who have worked in MobiKwik at some time in the past. So I think finding the right people, grooming them, growing them, and getting them bought into your idea is the biggest thing you can do, because there is no amount of money, no amount of technology can match that. A group of individuals who are really passionate about making a business or a product successful.
Yeah, I think you struck a nerve there. Like, it makes so much sense that finding the people is more important than making the right product at initial phases. Of course, both of them are simultaneously.
You need to have the product, but it will not go anywhere if you don't have the right people.
Fair, yeah. So, taking a hypothetical scenario or a multiverse or of that sort. So, if you were to start MobiKwik today at this point in the fintech space, what would you do differently, and so that it stands out in this market? Because now a lot of players are already there and the ball game has changed.
I mean, I would not start MobiKwik at this time. If I were to be out of MobiKwik, and if you ask me to start MobiKwik, I don't think I can compete, because I think the markets have different phases. And like you said, currently we are in a phase where there are already established players like us. There are others. We've reached product market fit, business model fit, and we scale revenue, users, everything. So I think, but still the fintech market in India is really, really big. And what what was a niche idea back in 2009 became MobiKwik today. So you have to identify what are the niche ideas today that can become the MobiKwiks of tomorrow. And the way the macro is in India, I think what we've seen in the last 10 years, we're going to see a much bigger exponential growth in the next 10 years. The problem is that as humans, we cannot imagine what is going to happen, because I don't think anybody could imagine 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, the state of digital payments with UPI and apps and the kind of ecosystem that we've built in India right now. Same way you cannot imagine today what is the ecosystem will look like 5 to 10 years. But if you can, and if you have ideas around that, and especially in fintech, I feel that as the markets become broader, you'll have more sharper niche ideas, whether it is, and it's all about making digital banking easier. It's all about digital banking, whether it is payments. Like I said, payments is going to be pretty hard, but around digital lending, which is a very big opportunity in India, because India has a lot of credit-starved customers, people who don't have access to credit. India has only about 45 to 50 million people who really have credit card. So there's a huge opportunity outside here, like just go 50 kilometers from here and talk to people in a village and understand what their needs are. I think you will know what kind of products they are looking for. They are looking for credit. They are looking for, a lot of people are looking to make returns on their money, in the sense that, these days, obviously, interest rates have come down, savings rates have come down, and not everybody is comfortable investing in equity markets. So how do you generate returns? Because otherwise, if you keep money in your bank account, 3, 4, 5%, you are losing money because of inflation. But if you really want to explore, there are new emerging areas where you can make money, like a P2P, like invoice discounting, like trade receivables, a lot of areas. Some of these areas are very, very niche right now, but they will for sure become bigger because India's scale. Think about India's scale. And I think that's where I would think, and I think some of the things I will do differently, obviously, is now, I have some learnings which I will crystallize, and I will hire good people faster. I will fire bad people even faster. I will I think one of the things I will not do is, one of the mistakes I did, like that time, this Y Combinator and a lot of the startup related lingo was very, very popular. I think I will spend less time reading that and more time actually actively, building the business. Because, sometimes you get basically trapped in that mode of just reading. Reading se kuch nahi hota hai. You have to build something, right? And if you build something, even if you do something wrong, you will have the opportunity to correct it. But forward movement or forward momentum is the biggest thing to solve for in a company. It's like, you want to create like a large moving ship, but if before you can build that ship, you have to first give it a push, and you have to keep pushing. It will move a centimeter, then it will move an inch, then it will move a meter, and before you know, it will be moving at the speeds of kilometers per hour. That's what it is like to build a company at scale. And I think that's one of the things which I will do differently. I will try to do things much faster. Although I believe I did it, but I think still there's opportunity to improve it.
Yeah. And I think what you said, like about keep pushing till the point it goes into the water finally. So I want to understand that in depth as to, because a lot of time, and I think a lot of people will resonate with this, that we keep pushing, but there's no end to it, right? And you do get discouraged a lot, and you are unsure whether is it even worth pushing anymore. And so that's what I want to ask. And I think we were discussing this before, that how do we not let that go and see that potential if it is there, and also to demarcate, okay, now it is time to let that go. So having that is very important.
Yeah, so I think that's a hard one to answer because there is no right answer, honestly speaking. Many times might be the right decision is to let go because it's not going to work. But it's very hard to arrive at that judgment. Personally, what from MobiKwik experience I can say is that, since I came from engineering background, I knew nothing about marketing, for example. Right? At that time, anyway, the literature was also not much there. So when we built MobiKwik.com, my assumption was if I make a website, people will come. But it's not like that. Obviously, you have to market and you have to get customers on your platform if you want to build a B2C business, direct to customer business. So I think if you are getting customers and if customers like your product, even if it is 1 customer, 5 customers, 10 customers, 100, and every day a new customer comes or 5 new customers come, I think there is something in there. Because that's the ultimate test. Right? You can have any plan, you can have any presentation, you can have any amount of money that you can raise from investors also. Because you are a great salesperson, you pitched and you got money. But if customers are not adopting your product, are not using it, are not interested, then I think you're stuck. And that's a hard call. What kind of a customer base or what kind of a velocity, etc. And different products will have kind of different scale to adopt. But that's the only thing on which I would, if I were to do another business ever, that is the only thing on which I would get stuck and give up saying that this is not working.
Yeah, I think that's a fairly good metric to.
I see people giving up on other things, like, for example, I can't hire engineers. I can't find engineering co-founder. I can't, like, there are people like you say, okay, I need a CTO to do this, or I need, money to do this, capital to do this. Guess what? Especially if you're building an internet startup, the amount of money that you need to just make a product is very, very small today compared to what it was, because the cost of technology has come down dramatically. And India, is very, very fortunate to have a huge supply of engineers. And and like I come from IIT, the point that I'm making is I actually rarely hire from IIT. I've actually hired most of my engineers not from IIT. And like I said, one guy was from Triple IIT, one guy from BC. But even then, we go to like all colleges, because I feel that the passion and hunger and talent is democratic. It's not concentrated only in IITs. People who get into IITs, of course, they have cracked one test and they're smarter. But in that peer group, there are other challenges that they are all, most of them end up thinking in the same way, right? That ye karna hai, aise karna hai, you go to master's, MBA, this XYZ. But if you go across India and see the diversity of people, length and breadth of the country, there's talent everywhere. So you can find great engineers, you can build it with very less amount of money. Those are not the reasons for which I will ever feel that I will get stuck on a product or an idea.
Right. Yeah. So talking about the fintech sector, how have you seen its landscape change over the years?
Like I said, right, I mean, today I'm more bullish about fintech than when I started. It's hard to believe that, right? Because I've been doing it for so many years. You would think that you must be tired. You must be like, okay, now I achieved something, so I'm satisfied. And we have like 1,000 plus people at MobiKwik. But the reality is that the market itself that anybody could think of back then is a very, very different market now. It's very, very big. It's huge. And especially in a country like India, we've seen that with UPI, with digital payments, with digital lending, with people investing in stock markets digitally. In financial services, only the technology companies will win. That's my fundamental belief. While there will be banks, right, which are the original custodians of money, but like you've seen, you can build on top of their infrastructure. And in India now, the infrastructure is interconnected. You can move money from one bank to another. You can borrow money from a bank or any other lender. You can invest money directly from your bank to the stock market. And so I think, and now you have obviously KYC and Aadhaar and account aggregators where, you can basically look at, like on MobiKwik app today, you can log in and access all your bank accounts and see all your statement. We are building insights on top of it, which will make basically you forget about ever logging into your bank account to see your bank statement. So the amount of innovation that's happening today in fintech, I meet at least one fintech company a week. And even then, I am like not satisfied because I think the number of people who are doing companies, and these are, by the way, not startups. These are legit businesses which are earning revenue. Forget about having customers. So I think the opportunity in fintech in India is huge. And if you ever think of any career anywhere, I think fintech is like. And the interesting thing about fintech is also that unlike other companies, like in the tech sector, for example, think about food delivery companies or logistics companies or e-commerce companies. All of them also have to solve a lot of the some physical operations related problems. Fintech is not like that. In fintech also you have operations, customer service, etc. But really you're not delivering any product. You're not delivering food or items or anything. You're not logistics. So from a pure, somebody who loves technology, it's a pure technology thing. And money is a digital construct. We invented money like thousands of years ago, right? As an exchange of value. So it's actually itself inherently, it's a virtual concept. So therefore it lends very nicely to a digital business. So it's a pure technology, pure digital business. And now, obviously in the last 2 years, there's been a lot of work on blockchain, crypto, decentralization. There's a big wave about that. Many of you would have heard about it, would have seen it. Now there is a new wave, and I know there was a lot of things have changed. Crypto prices have come down, but decentralization will happen over a period of time with different kind of business models, and it will affect finance in a big way. Then today, now we are living in the age of AI. So if you've not heard of AI, then probably sleeping under a cave. But AI is going to impact finance and fintech in a big way. So if you think of any idea in fintech, think about in India we have so much data of so many customers doing so many different things, merchants, businesses. You have tax data, income tax data. You have GST data. You have customers, like I said, access to bank accounts. So you can actually see account statements of 400, 500 million people. Imagine what you can build on top of that, right? So if you use artificial intelligence, if you use machine learning, the kind of models that can be built, the businesses that can be built, I think we are just at the very, very starting point of that journey. And so I'm really, really very bullish about fintech in India.
Yeah. And I think I was going to ask you that, in fact, that, for us that now, like, we're also budding entrepreneurs. So I was going to ask you the niche spaces that you're talking about in the fintech space. But I think you mentioned AI, using AI and building something on that in the fintech space. Anything apart from that?
So I think AI in general, for those who understand, in the last few years, the cost of computation has come down. The cost of training large models has come down because hardware has become so powerful that you can teach a supercomputer how to talk like a human, which is what is happening, right? With some of the tools like ChatGPT, etc. So that's just one application though. That's just language, right? You're talking text. Then there is images. Then there is videos. So I think AI is a really a big opportunity, especially in a country like India, because in India, I think AI can help in a lot of different areas. One of the areas which I'm really excited about is also healthcare, right? So AI in healthcare. Now think about the billions of Indians out there with our diseases, with our body structures, with the kind of data that is already there. And just like in the case of UPI for payments, there is a UHI, Unified Health Interface, that is being built for health records in India. So imagine, like for example, let's say how many of you, for example, can read an X-ray? I'm sure you can't, right? Most of you can't. But now it's possible to build applications which can read an X-ray or an ECG or any other kind of a diagnostic report and explain it in terms which you would understand. But that has to be trained at hundreds of millions of different data points. But fortunately, those exist in India. So personally, I'm quite fascinated about AI and I'm looking at different applications. Fintech is, of course, core, and so we are doing a lot of machine learning, not AI, in MobiKwik to understand customer profiles and customers better. What do customers need with their money? What do they want to do? If you need a loan, then how can I do it at a better price, faster? If you need to make returns on your money, where should you put in the money? Simple questions like that is what AI has the ability to answer. So I think those are the things that one needs to. I think at least I am thinking about.
Yeah.
And happy to chat about.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that. What is MobiKwik working on? Any future plans?
So what MobiKwik is building is, we started with payments, and payments is continuing to be extremely attractive, large market. We have 140 million users, 3.5 million merchants. We're continuing to expand to the length and breadth of the country. So I see that still a very big opportunity. Then obviously digital credit, we are very excited about. Like I said, in India, people have bank accounts, but they don't have banking. Because what you expect from a bank is banking. You're getting access to banking products. You expect a credit card. You expect loan when you need money. You expect the bank to handle your money and give you returns. This was the original construct of banks. How many of the banks are doing that? The answer is, not many, right? So, and plus there is the element of convenience and friction. So we are trying to build multiple verticals within MobiKwik, where we solve for digital banking. We, no matter what bank account you hold, but we connect with your bank account. We connect with you, your profile, and not only help you make payments seamlessly, but also help you get the right financial product at the right price. And that means if you need a loan, we give you a loan at the right price, whether it is a pay later product, whether it is a personal loan, whether it is a credit line, whether it is eventually, hopefully, housing loan. Or if you have money in your bank account, then we are trying to get returns on your money, because clearly money sitting in your bank account is losing value. So would you put all of it in the stock market? Would you put all of it in FD? Would you put all of it in mutual funds? Would you put some of it? How do you create your portfolio, right? I know there is a lot of literature on it, but really nobody has cracked in terms of how to do it in India, depending on different needs and profile of the customer. For that, understanding you is very important, for example. So personalization is a big area we are focusing on, where your need, and my need could be extremely different. You are somebody who wants to take risk with your money, but you want greater returns. Somebody else doesn't want to take any risk, but okay with less returns. Somebody else, wants a more balanced approach. So I think across the length and breadth of country, we have huge opportunity to improve access to these financial products, not just to people like you and me. I mean, we are the privileged ones, right? We are sitting here in Gurugram on our smartphones, having all kinds of conveniences. We are talking about people who live in the tier 2, 3, 4 towns, where the real opportunity of financial inclusion is. So MobiKwik's vision is to make digital banking accessible to 500 million Indians across the length and breadth of the country. And yeah, that's what keeps me excited. And hopefully I can go on for the next 10 years.
Yeah. Yes. Also, Bipin, I wanted to ask about, so you said that you want to create that landscape over the next, again, 10, 20 years. So what do you think you have done and would do differently? Some unconventional methods and practices that you've done that have made you here standing today and, in one of the leading digital payment, competitor in Indian market?
See, there is nothing conventional about building a business. You have to do what you have to do. All you can do is you can define the next milestone and how do you get to that next milestone. Because I think there is nothing like, when I started, by the way, I never imagined we would get here. And in 2015-16, when we got to that stage, I never imagined we would get there. And in 2015-16, I never imagined we would get where we are today. Right? This year, we are doing a top line of 1,000 crores and fully profitable. I never imagined I would build a company which will do this kind of scale of revenue and profits. And I still believe it's just getting started. So I think there is a lot of conventional wisdom which is true, but you have to adapt it. One of the interesting things is there's not a lot of literature about building a business in India. A lot of it is you would read in Silicon Valley, Y Combinator, Paul Graham, all these guys, right? How to build a startup. A lot of those things are applicable in US, in Western markets, but not necessarily in India, not in the same way. I'll give you one example, for example, right? So in India, like in US, for example, when you see startups, right, when they raise funding or when there is a bull run, they hire a lot of people and they give them good money. And when there is a recession, like it was in the last 18 months, markets are not doing well, stock markets are not liking the tech companies, then they are happy to fire people as well because they have to cut cost. And the cost of capital has gone up. They see that they cannot spend so much money. So the conventional wisdom would be to copy that in India. And startups in India have been doing that, right? You're hiring when you're raising a lot of funding and you're firing when you don't have money. But I think one of the things that I have learned is that it doesn't work like that in the Indian context. Because here, having a job, even if you're working in a startup, not everybody, especially once you reach a certain scale, sure, if you're a 15, 20 people company, everybody is fully aligned, etc. But when you're building a company, when you have thousands of people or hundreds of people even, nobody likes to be fired. Right? So, for example, when COVID happened, a lot of companies lost business, they fired a lot of people. Last year, when the funding winter is there, you keep hearing news. MobiKwik in the last 5 to 6 years has not fired anybody. And the reason I came to that conclusion is that basically, we, even within the companies, we are not truly capitalist. We are not really, we don't like to be so cutthroat. And when people leave, then it spoils the culture for people who are remaining, because everybody is friends with someone else. And so that was one of the insights. And the last layoff that we did 5.5, 6 years ago taught me that. And so I decided that no matter what happens, we will never overhire, firstly. We will never have excess capacity just because you have money or just because the business is doing well, so that you never be in a position where you have to fire people because you. So there's a lot of talk about doing experiments, building some small business, and then firing those people. A lot of the big companies, big startups have done that. So MobiKwik doesn't do that, and that's, I would say, one thing which is not very conventional wisdom. You wouldn't hear about that because we like to hire people slowly, and we like to hire with the right fit. But once we hire, then we may, if we are short of funds, we may delay appraisals sometime, or we may say, okay, we can't give you like a 20% raise or 25% raise, but we will not fire you because we believe we have hired somebody with the intent of making the journey together and taking them together along with MobiKwik. So yeah, that's one of the things I can think of, which is pretty unusual.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most unconventional things only because we saw in COVID how mass layoffs were there, and if that is what MobiKwik did, I think that's really applaudable to be sure. And I think I have one of my final questions, and then post that we can open up for others. I'm pretty sure a lot of them have a lot of questions. So for me, it's about that, like you said, after 5 years of working, you chose entrepreneurship and you took a big leap there. So we are also a cohort of entrepreneurs, at least a lot of them are. So what advice or what kind of secret sauce would you like to give to them where we're, at this point, we're building our own ventures. So what would you, advise us to do, and what not to do, what to do? So
see, there's books written about that, so I don't think I can cover that in a single question, but I touched upon it a little bit in the beginning. Most important thing is have belief in yourself and commit. So if you commit and have belief in yourself, I think that's it. That's all you need. Because see, we are human beings. Yeah, the success of any business, the success of any enterprise is also social in nature. You have to attract other people who will work for you. You have to attract other people who will put money in your company. You need investment, you need capital, you need best deals. If you're renting an office, you want the cheapest deal, right? All of it involves people trying to understand what you're doing. And if you have full belief in yourself and you already believe that this is going to be successful and is going to be big, then the person in front of you already believes that. And if they perceive that, then you can hire people, you can impress investors, you can do a lot of things. And it's irrespective of what kind of sales skills you have, what kind of marketing skills, because self-belief is the most important ingredient for starting any business, right? Because that's the piece where you don't give up and you just keep going. And there'll be times when you have to be prepared for times when things will not be good. And if you're mentally prepared for that, then I think that's more than 80% of the battle won. Because smart to sab hai. Everybody is smart. But this is where I think the entrepreneurs are different from other people.
Yeah, that's very insightful. Thank you for that. Maybe if you can have questions.
So looking at your background, you had a very, even WorkX was very technical, and I would say in semiconductors and all of that. And then you ventured into finance. So when you jump into an industry which is not so much, like you're not aware of so much as an entrepreneur, how do you go about it?
So I think it's all of one of the other skills, I would say an entrepreneur needs to have is constant learning. You have to evolve and learn as a person. Bipin Preet Singh of 2023 is a very different person from Bipin of 2009. And that's because, like that time, like you said, so more than that, like there were smart engineers and social engineers. I was exactly the opposite. I was like a complete introvert. I didn't like talking to people at all, even through my college, not social at all. focus just on the tech part, like a really, whatever is the stereotypical definition of a techie. But I challenged myself. And, like imagine such a person trying to convince another person to join their company. So that's what it takes, right? You have to, like I said, you have to start from self-belief, but also you have to evolve as a person. And you can see around you, right? You will have a friend who's really good at sales. You will have a friend who's really good at hiring other people. You will have a friend who's good at talking. I think one of the skills, at least I believe I have, is that I've constantly thought of what do I lack as a person, as a personality, and what are the skills I personally don't have, and how do I improve it, and how do I challenge myself. And I think that's what is definitely needed, because to run a 1,000 people company is very different from running a 20 people startup or working as a techie. And so it's all about like just pushing yourself very, very hard to get out of your comfort zone. We all think I do this, but really speaking, we can do anything. It's all about you pushing yourself and saying that, like, I'll give you an example. So although I was an engineer, I had never written code in Java. The first application that we built in MobiKwik even today, the first code I wrote myself in Java, which I read from internet. So I pushed myself to just learn coding and start doing it. I pushed myself into meeting other people, learning from them. So I think that's what is absolutely needed.
Hello, I'm Kriti, and I wanted to, since you are someone who is positioned in the industry in such a way that you have a very good bird's eye view of what's going on, and can also, to some extent, envision what the future for the country looks like. So 20 years ago, the mutual fund industry looked very, very different in India. The equities market looked very different. People had just started investing. And today we can do everything from our phones. What do you envision for India? How do things do? Which direction do you think things will move in? And what are some of the crazy things we can expect from the future? Let's say 15, 20 years down the line, not just 10 years.
Sure. I mean, see, a very, very, very high level, very broad question, but let me attempt to answer. I visited US, and after I think quite a gap, right after COVID, I had not gone. So I went there for 3 weeks, traveled to California, it was a vacation, and I experienced and went to Bay Area and talked to people, what people are doing there, what they are thinking, how they are operating, etc. And there's always this question in your mind: why are you in India? Like the people in US, they have better environment, cleaner air, cleaner water, great weather, right? All infrastructure, great roads, so many things. And in India, we, at least in a lot of the Indian cities, we don't have a lot of that, right? Or we are still working towards it, I would say. But like India is India. And the optimism that is there here, in spite of so many challenges, in spite of so many roadblocks, in spite of so many things not being great, is what is really makes me really excited. So I again reconcluded that good that I was not in US and I've built a business here in India, and I've furthermore committed that for the next 10, 20 years I can keep doing it. Because, look, India is my country. So first, that is the most important thing. And India is on a path of growth, which no other country in the world is. Right? And so if you're thinking about building a business, or even if you're thinking about working somewhere, I see the opportunity to grow for every individual to be significantly more here in India than anywhere else. But even if you're working in a startup or working in a big company also, I think because the opportunities that are here are evolving so fast, the businesses are evolving so fast, growing so fast, the country is changing so fast, that that is what I personally enjoy. So to me, the future looks extremely bright. I think you just have to pick and choose what role you want to play in the future of India's growth.
So India has launched CRDC, e-rupee, or maybe in the future they'll launch it for the public. So what do you think its future or the opportunities? Can we go for the banking of it, like loaning and all, like we're doing with the currency?
Right. Yeah. So again, like I said, fintech is changing. So India is changing so fast, and usme fintech is to changing even exponentially faster. And finance and money is changing. Right. India is one of the few countries where they've launched a centrally backed digital currency, CBDC, which is the e-rupee. What is that? I mean, think about it. You have 100 rupees in your wallet right now as cash. Right. Imagine it could be converted digitally and sit on your phone. Encrypted way. That's what e-rupee is. So effectively, you will carry the currency in digital format. You don't need a bank account because you're carrying your own cash. So technically, you can get all your salary, all your income sitting on your phone, which is on a blockchain connected, and that currency is obviously issued by RBI, which is the issuer of currency in our country, the central bank. So the opportunity of that is insane, right? Think about it. Think about if you don't keep money in your bank account and if it sits on your phone, what are the things you can do? Effectively, you remove the intermediaries, you remove all the banks, maybe you will remove the wallets also, and you can just do everything. So for example, if that person needs a loan, they don't need to go to a bank. You can say or communicate that I have 2 lakh rupees, you take 2 lakh rupees from me. So effectively, you make everything P2P. You make all finance P2P. The reality is that that banks obviously and intermediaries make a lot of money. Like banks, for example, give you a return of 3.5%, 4% in savings, but actually they're giving loans at 14-15%. So like that, I think obviously, let's say if you want to put money in stock market, you will be able to do directly from your phone. So that I think is even I cannot currently imagine how that world will look like. But currently it's very experimental. It's very early. But it's a very, very exciting opportunity. It's a very exciting and a very large opportunity. To what extent it will pan out will all depend on how the regulations shape up.
Hi, I'm Ayush. I'm a MobiKwik user since 2013. I have a very business-specific question. How is linking of RuPay credit card with UPI playing out, and should Visa and MasterCard be stayed in future?
Well, I mean, see, the thing is UPI has become so popular, and initially it became popular because obviously people link their bank account with UPI and you can make all the payments from your bank. And so now the regulators thought that why limit it to only money from your bank account? Why not you spend money from your credit card also over UPI, because UPI is working everywhere. And it's a good idea. It's a good idea. Obviously, they've started with RuPay, right? And I think it's the right step in my view. Like if you think about the world economy or the world finance, what is the single most important truth in world finance, right? The single biggest truth is everybody wants a dollar, right? Everything is pegged to the dollar. And it's the reserve currency in the world. And all the big financial innovation of the last 100 years has come from US, mostly from the Western world, Visa, MasterCard, everything. So that makes economies dependent on US and the Western markets. If you see what has happened in China also in the last 10 years, they've also made their own equivalent of RuPay card called Union Pay, which is the most popular card scheme in China, not Visa or MasterCard. In fact, if you take Visa, MasterCard to China, it doesn't even work. So I think what we are doing here from the government point of view, it's the right thing. India should create its own independent networks like UPI, like RuPay cards. And if that will require some pushing, right? So give some advantage, give some incentives, and that's what is happening right now. And I think it's in the right step, because you don't want to be dependent only on foreign institutions. Like what happened in the Russia-Ukraine war is that every Visa and MasterCard issued in Russia stopped working because the US government informed them, Citibank and all the banks who were issuing those cards, that you please stop servicing Russian clients. Imagine what could happen to an economy if all your payment systems or your financial systems stop working because you are at war or you are in a conflict kind of situation. So I think this is the right move. It will take more time, but I think we'll get there.
Hi, my name is Harsh. I had two questions. The first is, what is your take on blockchain in fintech space? And the second is, how do you hire crazy, dedicated people?
See, blockchain in fintech space is, CBDC is one example, which is a blockchain which is being created by Reserve Bank of India. And like these days, I think I am actually in awe of our government and our regulators, because they are innovating faster than us. And they are keeping us on our toes, like something new they are launching and saying, do this. So CBDC is an great example of blockchain fintech. I would say private blockchains in India have so far not been very successful, but I think there are a lot of emerging applications potentially. But that requires co-opting a lot of people, co-opting of banks, etc. I see use cases, for example, in KYC, right? Ideally, sabka data like is sitting today, like the Aadhaar data, is sitting on one server or a set of servers in a centralized location managed by the government. It's not very efficient. And I would say if we built a blockchain of private data or consumer data or PII data, that would be far more interesting. But it would require government permission and their intervention. Same way in terms of understanding customer profile from a credit point of view, etc. Again, things like credit bureaus. Everybody knows about CIBIL and those kind of credit scores, right? Again, that is very, very centralized. Ideally, a blockchain-based bureau score would be far more efficient, far more accurate compared to, because many of you would have experienced your CIBIL score is not correct and it goes up and down and you have no visibility, but a blockchain-based bureau score won't be like that. So I think there are a lot of applications. I don't see, unfortunately, a lot of innovation has happened yet, at least in India in the last 18 months. But I hope something will happen. To your next question, how do you hire crazy dedicated people? Yeah, crazy knows crazy. I will say that's the only answer. Crazy is not necessarily outwardly crazy. Okay, that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. You start like jumping up and down or dancing or something like that. Crazy is something that you would not expect normal people to do that, right? Like when we hired our first engineer, that guy, he comes from a pretty good family. Actually he didn't need to do a job, but uska passion tha, he wanted to build something. And he was clear. Even I talked to his professors and they say he's a bit crazy. And so I hired him. I was not sure what he's going to do, but he ended up doing very well. And I think that is the people who are not afraid. I think that's one of the big signs of crazy. That internally you are strong enough to know what you can do, what you can push yourself to do, what you believe in. I think that's one of the big signs that you're not afraid. So crazy people usually will not be afraid of taking risks with their life, with their careers, with what they are doing, etc.
Is it something you can build or is it innate only?
I personally believe that you can be whoever you want to be and you can change. This is unlike a lot of people think that people don't change. I think you can change. And so, I mean, you can become crazy. I mean, all you need is to think aggressively, push yourself. Crazy doesn't mean doing stupid things, okay? That's not, in the business context, it doesn't mean stupid things. It is just on the edge, right? When you know that, okay, I can go till this. I don't know how many of you play any sports, right? If you play any sports, you know what crazy looks like in sports, right? I mean, crazy shot or crazy kick or, unbelievable, something unbelievable. So I think, at least I have pushed myself really a lot, and I keep pushing myself to keep doing new things, right? I was never into sports or any kind of physical activity. In the last 2 to 3 years, I've pushed myself to compete with, people who are half my age, just passing out of college, and play football with them and see if I can push myself and play with them at least at their level, and trying to build a football team inside MobiKwik. So, is that crazy? How many startup founders are doing that? The answer is maybe, I don't know. I don't know many. So, that is the way I think you can become crazy.
Yeah, I think after this, a lot of volunteers would be there to come and play with you.
Yes.
Moving on, next question.
Hi, I'm Trishla. Like you mentioned initially that when you plan to do your MBA, your first thought was that you want to do it from abroad, right? So there must be something in your head that was missing in our Indian B schools. Today, you're sitting with one of the promising B school that we have here, and then you're motivating all of us. So I want to understand, what was that missing element that you thought wasn't there with the B schools then, and right now we are leading with those things that we're promoting, that people should stay here and then there should be lesser brain drain, that we should be sitting here and study in India and then work here and grow with it.
See,
a lot of questions I asked, but maybe you can just go with the flow.
Sure. So, see, when I applied, I was thinking like all my friends, like everybody who was my batchmate, I thought that there are only two things. One is I give CAT and I crack it and then get into either A, B, or C. That was the only option, right? Because otherwise, my peer group, what would they think? That's the thinking, I had that time. Or I go to B school in US and, explore a different life. And one of the things why I thought of going abroad was to experience a different life. Not necessarily so much about the MBA program per se, but more about when I read, I thought that, there are interesting, different people, right? In the B school. So that is the way I thought. But I think in India now things have changed quite a bit also. And I'm sure, for example, here, the group that has been created, the cohort has been created, I cannot think of it, something like that in a B school, in a more conventional kind of a B school. So sure, I think innovation keeps happening and you keep changing your thought process and finding what is right for you.
I think last 2-3 more questions.
So hi Bipin. First of all, it's great to have you here. So right now in our classes, we're learning about need gap analysis and decision making, right? So I had a two-part question. One was, as Kriti mentioned, you have a bird's eye view of the industry, right? And you have so much customer data to generate insights. But for someone starting out, they need to majority rely on qualitative data or their own insights, right? So first question is, how do you, what is the mindset that you carry when you're doing that qualitative research? And second is, being at the helm of a fintech company, what are the learnings that you have for reducing friction during decision making?
Okay. See, the first thing I would answer is that basically, there are two things you can do, because now a lot of the internet products have a lot of reach. So getting high quality data is not that difficult. Even if you don't have an app with millions of users, simple things like surveys, right, designed properly, can actually give you a very high quality data at scale. Done right, I'm not the expert, but we have employed it within MobiKwik for different kind of products that we have, for payments, for credit, for investment, just to understand how customers think about these things. But you have to remember that customers don't know what they don't need. what they need, but they can't express, right? They necessarily you can't express because, for example, if customers, when the cars were not invented and they were bullock carts, when they were asked, what do you need? They said you need a faster bullock cart. But actually, what happened was a car. So you have to do it in a way where you can get a lot of data about their existing usage and their existing preferences. And on top of that, you can talk to real people. There is no substitute in any business for talking to real customers and real people who are, let's say, it could be other startups also, who are just building some solution in that space. I find that very, very insightful, right? I find that's why I meet so many startups, because just when I talk to them, then it strikes me, okay, this is really beautiful. This can become like an idea. This can be a product. This can be a service. Of course, you have to develop that skill, but I think that's the second thing, which is talking to a lot of people in the industry, startups, startup founders, startup executives, especially because I'm saying startups are focused so much on innovation. So you can generate really high quality insights on what's missing and what can I build. And within the same space also talk to different people, 5 different people. If somebody is building, let's say, a stockbroking app, talk to 5 people, talk to the market leader, but also talk to the lowest one, talk to the middle one, and you will be surprised at the diversity of responses that you will hear. And then it's up to you how to use that data to be smart and build something more useful. On your second question, how to reduce friction in decision making? I think that's a very corporate question, right? So in decision making, I think decision making is critical in any business. But I think there is enough literature to say there are 2 kinds of decisions: reversible and irreversible. So you got to know what kind of decision you are taking at what point. If you're making a reversible decision, like for example, try this out, try this marketing technique. Mostly it's a reversible decision, right? You can try this. If it doesn't work, you can leave it. You can try another variant, right? But hiring, for example, your CXO, that's not a reversible decision, right? That's an irreversible decision. Because if you hire somebody, they better work out. And if he doesn't, then you will be set back. Your business will be set back by at least a year, because somebody will come and then they will leave, and then they will create a lot of problems in the company, and then you'll have to hire somebody new. So making those decisions as an entrepreneur or as a CXO and learning to do these decisions in that manner is very important. So that's what I try to do. I try to take most of my decisions very, very quickly. You develop a muscle saying that, okay, this is right, or even if this is not right, let it happen. We will see. Because you may not believe in it, but you let it happen. But if they're irreversible decisions, then you don't do it fast. You just do it as slow as possible.
Hi, Bipin. Thank you for diverse insights. My name is Praveen. I have a slightly product-oriented question. So today, every fintech is a super app. Every fintech offers UPIs. Then there are options to pay bills and then financial services. I mean, apps like Google Pay also have games inbuilt to increase average time spent, I believe. So, I mean, one day my father was telling me how he spends at least 30 to 40 minutes before making a payment to go through all the applications and make a smart decision. So why he thinks he is smart in that way to spend time and make a better decision before making a payment, given the diverse options available today. How do you see this as a business? Or how do you tackle this competition landscape? Because there is a product manager sitting in for every vertical, for every fintech app, trying to solve this.
Yeah. There is not a product manager. There is an army of product managers.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. So, and including us. So we have lots of product managers who are working on different products, etc. It's a very good question. what keeps me up at night is this only, is that the space we are in is not static. The apps that you see today are very different from the apps of 5 years ago. What they provide, what value they provide, how they provide, the service they provide, the experience they provide. I believe generally much more superior. Much more superior than how it was 5 years ago. And that is the ultimate truth, that in the next 5 years, it will not be the same. It will evolve, right? And so I think that's because of the nature of the industry that we are in. The industry itself is so innovative that you'll have new products, firstly. 5 years ago, nobody had digital credit. Nobody had digital investments, digital savings. It was more only payments. Now it is multiple products. So I believe, like, at least our vision is, if I can get a sense of belief or experience to the customers that they don't need to use their bank and they can use MobiKwik instead for everything that they want to do, but in a faster, cheaper, more efficient manner, more engaging manner, then that's the end goal. The paths that different companies may take for that might be completely different. And what I just said, you can't translate it into just a product just like that. You have to think through combinations, etc., because you have to also deal with clutter. So one of the big challenges in products is, especially modern apps, is dealing with clutter. Simple is always good, but how simple is good? Do people want a lot of different options? Do they want less options or fewer options? That's a never-ending kind of a decision that needs to be constantly made depending on how the market is progressing.
Last question.
Hi, my name is Badrinath. So you were telling that once when you were working for some other company, you were like a cog in a wheel. And now that you have a company and there are 1,000+ employees there, and there are people who went on to build their companies from your company. So what kind of support or mentorship you or MobiKwik as a company did provide them? So this question is coming from my own experience and also from a lot of stories I've heard from my friends. When you put down your papers and you go to build on something, or you're going to some other company for better offer, suddenly the managers become villains and they treat you very badly, right? So how are you supporting the people who are going to build some companies and they're now CXOs for the companies?
I mean, like, I don't know which companies you're talking about, but certainly not in MobiKwik, and I would say not in a lot of startups. Companies which have true startup culture, they actually encourage people to innovate and take risks and be entrepreneurs within the company. The way we are building MobiKwik is for different businesses and sub-businesses and products. We hire entrepreneurs and we encourage our employees to act like entrepreneurs. Take full decisions, full ownership, full budget. Do what you can do. Show me what you can do. And if somebody, and there are many people who left to start other companies. I give you a few examples. Our doors are always open. At least my doors are 24/7 open. And you can ask any one of them. They can reach out to me on WhatsApp and they can ask me any question related to their business, and they do. And many of them probably will end up building, I hope, bigger businesses than MobiKwik. Because that's the true entrepreneurship spirit. I don't think it is about, you have an idea. You have an idea, for sure, go ahead and do it. I will definitely help in mentoring you. I'll definitely help in whatever way I can in the limited time I've got. So I think, at least I have been following that, and I think that's the true startup spirit. It's not just about building your own company. It's really getting people to think and act like entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's good to see that a lot of companies that thing is changing now because of the startup ecosystem we have, but it's because not yet.
I think what you're talking about is probably a little more older, different kind of companies, etc. But up to right now, there are so many startups. Everybody has worked in a startup. If they have not, I encourage them to at least work once in their lifetime and experience, like work in a true startup, whatever stage you're comfortable with, growth stage, early stage, mid stage. And great startups will always push you, will always give you that platform where you will grow and you will become a better person, you will become a smarter person, you will become a stronger person.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Bipin, for coming here today.
Thank you.